Hello and welcome back to another episode here at The Damage Report. Under quarantine, phase 2-ish. It's a big building. It's mostly abandoned. Sometimes Mike Shekels comes here. You might have seen him on Common Room. Sometimes he'll pop in, and I immediately run away to get my mask because I thought I was totally alone. But generally abandoned, and I generally feel alone. But it's 2020, so what are you going to do? And I'm not technically alone today because it is Wednesday, so we've got Jayar Jackson. Jayar, welcome back to the show.
I feel like the weeks just go by faster and faster. It was just yesterday that I was on a takeover show on TDR, completely overrun. Yeah. Some guy left town, so I was like, hey, I'll do it. And we're already back on for another JR Wednesday. This is fun. I like it.
You did. Yeah, that was a fast turnaround. So you stepped in and you did the show with Adrian. What was it like taking the reins and leading an episode of the Damage Report?
I'll tell you this. I really need to educate myself on the jargon, the vocabulary, everything that surrounds the giving that happens on Twitch. I've said it every time I've done a Twitch show through TYT. But, the subs and the gifts and the givings and the whatever's given, I tried to read it. And I feel like the people who gave were like, I'll just forget it. I'd rather you not say my name associated with whatever you were just saying about it. That was my biggest hang up. I got to be honest. Mm-hmm. He was like, oh, that's a waste of whatever I gave because this guy totally butchered first my name and then secondly what I just gave.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep up. I know most of the lingo, but I haven't had any time whatsoever for a few months now to really play any games. So I do feel like I might be slipping away from that. Like there's been these huge trendy like waves of games that everybody's playing and like making memes about, and I haven't even touched it. So I'm feeling like I'm getting more disconnected from everything. But not from the audience. You know why? Because we are going to be responding to your super chats, comments, Twitches, Twitters, all of that stuff as we go on. Both Jayar and I will be responding. So feel free to send those in. We've got a lot of stories that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be responding to some of Trump's town hall from yesterday. He spoke with George Stephanopoulos. He made noises anyway. It was something like speech. How did he do? We're going to get the defensive reaction almost immediately from Fox News. But then also, more importantly, update on the ICE facility whistleblower story that we talked about yesterday on the show. We've got more anti-maskers. We've got the weaponization of Trump's Bob Woodward comments from those interviews from throughout the early parts of the pandemic and more. It's a lot. And you know what would be nice? Even more people joining us to watch it. And the only way that's going to happen is if you like the stream, maybe share it, do whatever it is that Google and or Facebook and Twitter and all that want you to do for people to know that this is actually going on. We don't have billionaires boosting our streams, but I think that you will provide a nice replacement for that. And with that, JR, why don't we jump into our first stories?
Love it.
Since it was revealed that Donald Trump did a series of interviews with journalist Bob Woodward and said that he always was downplaying the pandemic, you've had to wonder, once he actually has to answer for that in front of real people, how is that going to go? So last night was the first time in this town hall that he had to do that. So here you have him being asked a question about that downplaying of this horrendous pandemic.
Hi, my question is, if you believe it's the president's responsibility to protect America, why would you downplay a pandemic that is known to disproportionately harm low-income families and minority communities?
Yeah, well, I didn't downplay it. I actually, in many ways, I upplayed it in terms of action. My action was very strong. Yeah, because what I did was with China, I put a ban on. With Europe, I put a ban on. And we would have lost thousands of more people had I not put the ban on. So that was called action, not with the mouth, but in actual fact. We did a very, very good job when we put that ban on. Whether you call it talent or luck, it was very important. So we saved a lot of lives when we did that.
There were holes in the ban, and the European ban didn't come for another month.
Okay, so look, he referred, as he has been for months constantly, to the fact that he sort of mostly initiated a ban against travel from China after the virus was already in America. And he does that because that's the only thing that he can point to. And it was the easiest thing to do. The dude was passing travel bans on a monthly basis leading into the pandemic. So that does not actually address her concern at all. That individual wanted to know why he described himself that he was downplaying it. She tried to follow up and acknowledge that it was his words that he did that. And he did what he did. He just talked over her, and she eventually gave up and sat down because he didn't give a damn about her concerns. He just wanted to talk about his ban.
Well, okay, so there's multiple. This one wasn't circulated as much yesterday, but if he wants to talk about how his plan of action was best, he did all these bans on China, and that's actually what happened. Despite what he said he was going to do with the American people as far as information he's given us with his actions. Okay, fine. He wants to try, and that's going to appeal to his voters who are trying to find something to grasp a hold of, right? That's honestly the objective here, because everyone who understands what he said and did is going to understand what he said and did, and nothing that he can say now can change it. You just have to explain it, which he won't do. We know that. But the thing that came out yesterday that I'm not sure if the questioner or if maybe even Stephanopoulos brought up, this also happened in April. There's more tapes from the Woodward conversations where he said again, this thing's a killer. You wouldn't believe how easily transmissible it is. He said these things months after he originally said he's going to downplay it. That's more revelations about how bad this is. But days after having those revelations, that truth to Bob Woodward, he then goes on and tells people that are protesting in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, those several states are around that area, hey, bring freedom to your country, bring freedom to your states. Congratulations, get out there and fight this stay-at-home orders and the invisible enemies in full retreat. He said all these things days after, acknowledging how easily transmissible and much of a killer this thing is. Again, so you can talk about your travel bans, you can talk about your Chinese opposition and how much you want to associate it strictly with them. But we see in more tapes and more audio recordings what you said in private versus what you're telling people to do in public. I don't care about your ban. You're telling people once in April, it's here. So your ban didn't mean anything at this point anymore. So people are going out in the streets to protest this thing being fake, and you're egging that on. Why did you do that?
Yeah, 100%. And I don't want to panic people. Okay, don't go out and tell people to purchase every roll of toilet paper, that you can find. That would be a positive way to tell people not to panic. But telling people it's going to go away, you don't have to worry, no action is needed, is not reassuring. Okay, and even if it were, certainly not the cost of so many additional people that have died. We are surrounded every day with people who don't take the virus seriously. You could draw a direct line to the rhetoric of Trump campaign officials and Fox News hosts on that. We'll be showing you some of those individuals later. And I love that you mentioned, the fact that behind the scenes from one day to publicly the next day, his messaging was completely changing. That's going to hurt him. And at the close of the show, we're going to have an ad that mashes up some of that. But really fast, just on a fact check. Remember fact checks when facts mattered? He said, I didn't downplay it. I upplayed it. Remember, because he has the best words and the best mind. He's not losing it. Okay, well, let's see. Let's go to the Woodward tapes. What did he actually say? Not in Woodward's words or not anonymous source. What did he say? Here you go.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't want to create a panic.
Okay. So we only got part of that audio there, but that should be the right tape. He downplayed it. I always want to be downplaying it. No, sorry, that doesn't look good anymore. Now I upplayed it. I upplayed it. No, you upplay some things, whatever that means. You upplay Antifa, because it's not actually a threat. You up it to here and pretend that it is. You do that all the time. The threat of, getting cancer from a windmill, for instance, that's not actually a threat, but you upplay it to pretend that it is. That's not at all what you did with this. And she was 100% right to ask that question. You can talk over her and hope that it'll go away. But those quotes aren't going to go away. They're going to be in 100 ads between now and election day. And I think it's right for people to be concerned about that. We should be.
So maybe he's set up this dynamic where you'd have to ask him specifically, okay, so you say that your travel ban is the reason why you've saved millions of lives based off of nothing. But so what about what you've told the American people the way they should act once it was already here? Because that was part of the problem. It was already here. As people saw it coming, you ignored it. So once it was here, you didn't do anything about what Americans then have to deal with as it's on our shores. So it's all here. Now, what was your responsibility to tell the American people? So now we got to break it down to this specific. Okay, fine. You can clarify it your way. What did you tell the Americans while you downplayed it? Because that's the specific question that he can skirt around as long as he has a limited amount of time just to filibuster for a second and allow the next question to get asked.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, that was hardly the craziest thing he said. We're going to go to others. I just want to reassure the individual in the chat that said, a windmill doesn't cause cancer, John. I know. I know. That's my whole thing, is knowing it doesn't cause cancer. Okay. Okay, let's move on to other misinformation that he was spreading right there. One of the campaign themes of Donald Trump's reelection is apparently not knowing who the president is. Like, they keep pointing to things that are going on right now and saying that this is Joe Biden's fault in some way. So they've been doing that, but they've also got that for the pandemic as well. So take a look at Trump laying the blame on Democrats for not doing something that they can't do.
The wearing of masks has proven to lessen the spread of COVID. Why don't you support a mandate for national mask wearing, and why don't you wear a mask more often?
Well, I do wear them when I have to and when I'm in hospitals and other locations, but I will say this. They said at the Democrat convention they're going to do a national mandate. They never did it because they've checked out and they didn't do it. And a good question is, you ask, like Joe Biden, they said, we're going to do a national mandate on masks.
He's called on all governors to have them. It is a state responsibility.
No, but he didn't do it. I mean, he never did it.
So I don't know what we're supposed to say. So the Democrats were going to impose a nationwide mask mandate, and they didn't do it. Well, that's true. They didn't do it. None of them, last time I checked, were president, so couldn't do it. Biden has occasionally said that he might do that depending on the situation with the pandemic when he becomes president. But Jayar, how are we supposed to respond to that? And is that convincing? Is that persuasive to his base? Yeah, no, Joe Biden didn't do that. That's true. Is that how they're responding to quotes like that?
Yes. And of course, and my examples are based strictly off of Twitterers, which 50% are real people and 50% aren't. But either way it goes, we know that that's the point that's getting pushed. Whether or not whoever's pushing it, the fact you see this coordinated message that goes out consistently, you know that it's been created somewhere and then presented to be taken, to be spread to the masses this way. And that's definitely one of them. What about Biden's response to it? I've seen that many times. What about Biden's response to the coronavirus? What about what he wanted to do? He can say all he wants. Hey, John Iadarola also daily talks about what we should do with the coronavirus, but I don't think he can do anything about it except tell you and probably try and educate you on where the facts are. From there, we need our elected leaders. Again, maybe it's split in some kind of way. Either he doesn't know how elected officials and how our democracy works, or he doesn't care. I'm not sure which one it is, but he's like, well, who cares about who can do something? I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. And somehow he thinks he controls everything. And so similarly, well, Joe Biden, he wants to control everything. How come he can't just control it from here? I don't know. I really think there's holes in his logic of how he gets from A to B. So once we all get to be with him, we're like, how did we get here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel this like existential dread when I see things like that. And it would be one thing if it was like Trump was campaigning on this the first time and he got 3% of the vote in the Republican primary. That would be like, oh, good. What do you know? That sort of stuff isn't going to play. But he's already president. He has a very good chance of becoming president again. And he's campaigning against the idea that the person he's running against is the one who's actually president already. But this is kind of like a consistent thing because they wanted to run before they had control of literally everything. They wanted to run against government. They were outsiders running against government. Then once they became president, had control of the Supreme Court, the Senate, and all of that, now it's the deep state. So sure, now we've taken control, but there's another layer. So they liked the idea of running against the radical left. Well, the radical left didn't win the primary, but don't worry. Joe Biden's secretly controlled by the radical left. Joe Biden's already president. He's responsible for the riots and all of that. It's like everything fundamentally is just whatever they want it to be. And it would be one thing if they were losing running like that, but it really does seem to be working. And it's it's like trying to explain basic concepts to people and they just respond that Brawndo has electrolytes. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that because we don't seem in the same reality. Joe Biden isn't president right now, okay? He isn't, okay? You can criticize him for what he's saying he'll do, whether that's inadequate or maybe going in the wrong direction. You can do all of that. That's generally how campaigns have been run. You can't criticize him for not handling situations that were your exclusive province because you're the goddamn president.
Yeah, I mean, he's already done with Obama as well.
But I'm wrong.
He's like, yeah, they brought up Obama and why he hasn't addressed certain things that happened during during Trump's administration. So it's, it's an ongoing approach because people don't know when one thing happened versus another. So as long as they just say it, they know a certain percentage of their support base is going to buy it. That's just all there is to it. They're there to take something in, to eat up and try to regurgitate to everyone else in his defense.
So the bad things that are happening now are Biden's fault in the future. So the riots are Biden's future fault. Okay, because that's right now he doesn't like it, so he gives it to Biden in the future. Things he does want, he just takes. So Veterans' Choice, he passed that, even though that was passed under Obama and signed by Obama. So he took from the past the things that he wants. He's basically, his time frame is 3 years of time travel in either direction. What if he were to go further? Like, if he were to literally say, I won the Vietnam War, what would Fox News, what would their coverage of that be? Like, if you were to talk to Trump fans at a Trump rally a week after he said, I won the Vietnam War, I don't know. Maybe it'd be enough. I try to come up with these all the time, and I honestly don't know what would actually be enough to get through to people, because the 3 years could become 5 or could become 10 at some point. I don't know at this point.
Yeah, none of them. Because if you could have predicted that in talking about the coronavirus and that he would step in front of the podium and tell people to ingest disinfectants and it'll clean that whole thing out. If you would have predicted that he would have, yes, that's his motion. If you would have predicted that he would have gone earlier this year and downplayed it and said, oh, we got 15 cases, it's just going to be gone. Or if you'd have predicted it, he said, it is what it is. The fact that hundreds of thousands of Americans have died under his watch and under his ineptitude, you would have been like, well, that would have been enough. We have about a 25 to 30 different things that he's done just in the past 6 months that you could have said before those 6 months happened. If President Trump does this, enough of his people will finally throw up their hands and go, I can't take it anymore. But we've seen those things. Come up with anything. They're going to find an excuse and something to say. So if he says, yeah, I alone won the Vietnam War, what they're going to say is, oh, first of all, we did win the Vietnam War. And what he meant to say was we. He's such an American. When he says I, he means we as Americans. That's what they would say. And they would recreate history and say that we won the Vietnam War. They would straight up say it. They just would. You think they haven't recreated history on everything else? Yeah, they have.
They're creative in that very limited way. I don't really produce much art, but they can square that particular circle. Okay, let's move on to the next bit. This is just, I mean, we could play 20 of these. I'm going to limit myself to one, but here you go. Trump at the town hall was asked about mask wearing by an individual who was being responsible in wearing a mask and wanting him to show leadership on that. And he just ranted against masks. Now, I want you to watch this. And you're going to be tricked by some of the context of it. You're going to look at this video, and you're going to see an individual in a suit. He's going to be on a stage, and there's going to be like a lot of like a nice accoutrement in the room. But just imagine that you were on a bar stool sitting next to this guy in some dive bar, and he said word for word everything Donald Trump says here, and you tell me if it doesn't actually work. Here you go.
Now, there is, by the way, a lot of people don't want to wear masks. There are a lot of people think the masks are not good. And there are a lot of people that, as an example,
who are those people?
Well, I'll tell you who those people are. Waiters, they come over and they serve you, and they have a mask. And I saw it the other day where they were serving me. And they're playing with a mask. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying what happens. They're playing with a mask, and so the mask is over, and they're touching it, and then they're touching the plate. That can't be good. There are a lot of people. If you look at Dr. Fauci's original statement, you look at a lot of people, CDC, you look at a lot of people's original statement, they said very strongly, George, don't wear masks. Then all of a sudden they went to wear masks. the concept of a mask is good, but it also does, you're constantly touching it, you're touching your face, you're touching plates. There are people that don't think masks are good.
I'm still waiting for
Apologies
the
to the
answer.
audience. You're now stupider because of that. No, but there was an answer. I don't know what the question is. I don't know where he lives, but no, there was an answer. Some people don't like it, and who? Waiters, because you touch it, and then you touch a thing, and so it would be better, by the way, to just not have a mask at all then, okay? Because if you're going to touch it, then you should just be breathing directly the germs in other people's faces. And yeah, some people don't like it. And at one point, Fauci apparently wanting people to not buy up the entire supply of PPE and making it impossible for medical professionals to have it, told people not to purchase masks very briefly. And then for the last 6.5 months, every responsible medical professional in America has been telling people in chorus to wear them. Nope, sorry. That first week, one person sort of got it wrong. So I'm just going to say that until the end of my days. That's the most barstool sitting thing right there. What a stupid, pointless dodge. You know it's healthier. That's why you're not going near anyone who doesn't wear a mask. You've said that to reporters. That's why at your rally, you've got a ton of sheep out there breathing germs on each other, and you're far away from that, secluded. Okay, so you know exactly how important it is.
Absolutely. He says it a lot.
Move a couple of schools down. Basically.
Let's keep it real. Every anecdotal story that Trump has about any interaction he's had with a normal human being is a straight up bald-faced lie. It just is. So what restaurant were you at? Like, this is when you start, because I know a lot of liars. Just ask him a couple of specifics. Just ask him simple specifics about this interaction that they had. Restaurant? You at a restaurant, Mr. Trump? You had an interaction with a waiter at a restaurant, Mr. Trump? Really? What restaurant was this? When did you go? Who were you with? What did you eat? Why were you doing this? There was a restaurant that you went to and we didn't hear about all the Secret Service that was surrounding you as you went to a restaurant? Because we know even when presidential candidates before their presidents run in normal times and they go to these events, they go to like cookouts, and there's something up in, I don't know, in like the Midwest where they eat a big hot dog, which none of them should ever do. It's like a tradition, or they all eat like a corn dog. We see this every cycle, don't we? They do these things, and those things get media attention. You think the president of the United States, this president who doesn't like being around people, as you pointed out how he said at his rally, and is afraid of catching coronavirus, is going to a restaurant and is speaking to a waiter, which, by the way, he didn't give us this interaction with the waiter. He just said, who dislikes it? Waiters, because they pull these things down. Did the waiter say, I can't stand this? Did he say, I'm over pulling this mask down? Did he say, I can't breathe? Did he say any of those things to you? Very simple follow-up questions would allow us to show all the holes in his BS story. He's such a bad liar. I don't know how he even gets away with it. It's obvious.
Yeah. And think about, like, I love Fox News does this constantly. It's we're going to tell you what some people think about something and pretend that we haven't done everything we can to make them think that. So they will talk about a story nonstop, day after day after day after day, and then say, hey, there was a protest where people were frustrated about this thing that we got them to be obsessed about. So totally. Trump and Fox News has spent months telling people, you don't need masks. Masks are stupid. They probably give you cancer. I don't know. It's unconstitutional. You're going to be a sheep if you wear a mask. Something, something Bill Gates, something, something 5G. Fast forward. Some people don't like masks. I don't know, and that's a reason why maybe I shouldn't show any leadership as president. And we know that it is like what we have available to us as a country to do something about the pandemic right now, generally masks. It is the most effective, the simplest, the cheapest, the most widely available. It's all of those things simultaneously. The only variable in the equation that we don't have is the willpower, and we don't have that because we're awful as individuals, and those individuals have been told by fundamentally irresponsible people with their own agenda to not wear them. We could have done that. And by now we could probably be largely reopened. We'd still have to be wearing the masks and all of that, whether you're a waiter or not, and we would be okay. But we didn't have that, and so we still lost more than 1,000 people in the last daily reporting. And I've said that. I couldn't tell you how many times. I'm going to have to tell you that hundreds of times probably on future shows as well, because of idiots like Donald Trump and his complete and utter lack of leadership. Now, let's go to the sort of headline of that town hall, because it's the most consequential. Like the mask stuff, super consequential, but it's baked into the last few months. We're never going to improve on the mask. So bear in mind, your 2021 is going to be real fun, by the way, because we're never going to get better on that. But let's talk now about the overall strategy. What are they actually doing here? So let's transition to this. We've been telling you for literally months that Donald Trump, despite his changing public rhetoric about this, has been curious about, from the very beginning, a herd immunity strategy. Now, he needed to be talked out of this in the early days of the pandemic when he was told by Dr. Fauci and others that that would result in the deaths of literally millions of people. And they have claimed to not be following that. But those claims are starting to fall apart, with Donald Trump multiple times in recent days throwing that term or something akin to it into his public addresses. And we now know that his main medical advisor, who's largely pushed out Dr. Fauci, Dr. Atlas, who's not a doctor of infectious disease, by the way, is pursuing this strategy. So now look, it's just worked its way into his everyday conversation. Here you go. Here's Donald Trump on herd mentality.
And we are going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And it is going away. And it's probably going to go away now a lot faster because of the vaccine. It would go away without the vaccine, George. But it's going to go away a lot faster with it.
It would go away without the vaccine?
Sure. Over a period of time. Sure. With time, it goes away.
And many deaths.
And you'll develop herd, like a herd mentality. It's going to be herd developed, and that's going to happen. That will all happen. But with the vaccine, I think it will go away very quickly.
Got to take a quick break.
But I really believe we're rounding the corner, and I believe that's strong.
As you know, Dr. Fauci disagrees with that.
Well, I mean, but a lot of people do agree with me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's not quite 3 strikes, but herd mentality. It's going to be herd developed. No, that's not the actual term. But honestly, him getting the term wrong doesn't matter in terms of the public health consequences. It matters in terms of the narrative of him being better mentally equipped than Joe Biden to be president, when Donald Trump's brain at this point, I have to assume, is what you would get if you went around the country swirling your pinky in the belly button of millions of people and then collecting what you find into a ball and shoving it in his big orange head. That's what he's working with mentally. But anyway, that's not what's important, Jayar. What's important is that he is 100% pursuing a herd immunity strategy, which I will remind people is a strategy of having no strategy and just letting people get the virus. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm not sure if anybody's hearing what he's saying, Stephanopoulos. I'm not sure if he picked up herd mentality versus herd immunity. Because honestly, it could easily be just a simple slip of the tongue, because there's this term called herd mentality and there's a term called herd immunity, right? Yeah, you can get them mixed up if you're speaking quickly, you're just talking off the cuff. I get that. The problem is when you go and you're hell-bent on making, I'd say 90% of your re-election bid to talk about how mentally challenged and senile your opponent is. So if that's the basis for what you want to do, and you talk about all of his gaffes, because yes, Joe Biden throughout his career has a lot of gaffes. If that's your focus, you got to make sure you don't do it. It's like someone on Twitter. If I'm going to criticize you for putting the wrong there in your tweet, it's not THERE, it's THEIR. If you do that, that means you better not ever make that mistake. That's what happens when you decide to be the grammar police. You cannot make any mistakes, or else you're like, I set myself up for that. So if you're Trump and you're running for president, and you want to talk about someone's mental capacity and their ability to speak, if you mess up, be prepared to have it thrown right back at you.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I get it. I've got Trump derangement syndrome because I have some semblance of a value system remaining. I get it. I lose it over Trump. Do you have any idea how many of those sorts of gaffes we could play for him literally every single day? When he said that Biden got the Nobel Prize, did we say anything about that? Did we do a video about it? No. Countless times he says insane things. He has no idea what is going on, but we generally give it a pass because there's more important things to focus on. The issue here is that there is potentially nothing more important than this in the short term. If he is actually pursuing this strategy, which again, I hate even using that term because it glorifies what he's actually doing. What he's actually doing is this. Do we have herd mentality yet, or do we got a herd? Have you heard anything about the mentality? Do we got it? And then maybe someday enough people will have gotten it, enough people will have died that we will have moved past it, assuming you can even do that. And again, that's not even established for this particular virus. He is actually pursuing it, and he's being more and more open to just revealing that as he talks. And I don't think that there can be enough focus on that. There was one or two questions about that. And I know Stephanopoulos did some good follow-ups on a few things, like his attempts to destroy the ACA and things like that. How can you not have more follow-ups on that? Like when they say he spent months saying there were some who wanted to go herd, but I didn't, when all we knew at that point was that he had been talking about it. And now he's just casually saying it. He just drops it into conversation like I mentioned the last episode of John Oliver. Like it's just a thing that happens without even realizing it. How can you not respond when the cost is so high?
It doesn't matter to him, because that's when you have the situation he has when he only gives a damn about himself. When you can only care about yourself, when anyone else is brought up, you have no other answer except, like, you have to pause and go, wait, what does this have to do with me again? Oh, nothing. Okay, I don't care. You just have to find a more artful way of doing that, because that's what most politicians do. He hasn't figured that out
yet. Okay, well, look, he's an absolute idiot. So why don't we go to an individual who knows what he's talking about, but that I fear every day has less and less influence over the actual strategy and outcome. So Trump talked about the herd mentality, that we're going to develop a herd brain or something. That means effectively that he is waiting for enough people to have been exposed to the virus and or have a vaccine that effectively it will be too difficult for the virus to freely propagate from individual, and it will sort of wear itself out in the population. The issue with that has been noted many times, maybe 50 times on this show. We've gone over the statistics, but let's talk about Dr. Fauci, who earlier this month said if everyone contracted it, even with the relatively high percent of people without symptoms, a lot of people are going to die. Letting the virus spread uncontrollably to achieve herd immunity would bring the death toll to a level that's, quote, totally unacceptable. That's what Dr. Fauci said. He goes on to say, if you look at the United States of America with our epidemic of obesity, as it were, with the number of people with hypertension, with the number of people with diabetes, if everyone got infected, the death toll would be enormous and totally unacceptable. Unacceptable to Dr. Fauci. I'm assuming unacceptable to all of us on either side of this camera, but it appears to be totally acceptable to Donald Trump. I mean, he's accepted 200,000 American deaths sort of officially recorded without batting an eyelash. I mean, if it gets up there to 1 million to 2 million, how much sleep do we think he's going to lose?
New question that needs to be asked every time he says it is what it is. And I think we've done a great job. I mean, Jared Kushner, they all say all this stuff about how awesome it is and the great response we've had. Mike Pence, because he's had to be put in charge of it. All this. So every time they say how great they've done, just ask them, what's our threshold to where it's a bad job? What number should we start criticizing and complaining your response? Is it 250,000? Is it 500,000? Is it 1 million people? Make them put a number on how many people they think can die before they begin to care.
Yeah.
Hit them with that one, because apparently 200,000 is not a problem. But there's plenty of people in this country, maybe the friends and families of 200,000 people, that think that's maybe one too many because of the way that their lives have been affected by it. Make the people that are okay with it answer, when is it not okay?
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we almost had it for today. In the email that I sent to you last night, we were going to have it. I'm going to start a series of videos, probably between now and the election, if he gets reelected, maybe longer, called COVID Flashback, and it's going to be playing videos of individuals in the media and Trump administration officials, including Trump, and what they have said over time about the pandemic. And there was one relatively early on, when at one point the COVID death estimates were being revised down, that had a Fox News host sort of like bragging, oh, they said it was going to be 200,000. Well, it's not even a fraction of that by August. So let's just reopen the economy, because we do have to remember what these people were saying, what they were advocating for, how they were manipulating what we knew at that time to get the sort of economic outcomes that they wanted. And so we're going to have that coming up, maybe starting tomorrow. We'll see. But really fast, on the numbers, on herd immunity once again. I want to give you just a ballpark estimate of what we have to assume at this point is the strategy, at least at the federal government level. States might be taking it more responsibly. Some appear to be. But the federal government wants herd immunity. Most scientists think 60 to 80% of the population needs to be vaccinated or have natural antibodies, i.e. be exposed to the virus, to achieve herd immunity. And again, I will add, very few of these articles do. That is assuming that you can develop a relatively long-lasting or permanent immunity to this virus, which has not been established, okay? Yeah. Herd immunity exists for some diseases and not for others for that very reason. All of this conversation is assuming this will be one of those, and perhaps it will, but we don't know. Let's say it is. The coronavirus has infected less than 2% of the U.S. population. This is as of August 13th, and had already killed 167,000 people. That was back in August, 2%. We need 30 to 40 times as many people to be infected. Now, does that mean that the death toll would be 30 to 40 times higher? Perhaps not, but it would be a lot higher than it is now. And it is not in any way an exaggeration to say that millions of people will die if we pursue this as a national strategy. Now, some of those people can get the vaccine, assuming a vaccine does actually come, that it's made available, that it's affordable, and all of that, and it actually works. We don't know any of those things yet, but we do know that what we have before the vaccine is a strategy of the herd mentality.
John, all you did was go through a normal, logical explanation, and honestly, a dive, not even a deep dive, a dive into how something like this works. So if you're going to throw on the term like herd immunity, and certain numbers of people need to get it, and it'll all be fine once this happens, like they've been pushing, you have to understand those very simple things. Because they're also bragging, by the way, this is where their arguments collide. They're arguing about how few, as far as the entire population, actually have it. That's like a victory lap for them, right? And then when you talk about the fatality rate, case fatality rate, all those things that they're bragging about, in order to have your herd mentality / immunity, Donald Trump, you got to infect a lot more people. Are people volunteering to be infected? Are people volunteering to take this unproven vaccine that you are claiming is coming out in the next 2 weeks? All these things that you're talking about happening that haven't happened yet. If you think you're going to get to a logical endpoint, you have to think out the full equation. All you did, John, was go through the equation. This is what our administration of the United States of America has not fully vetted out, is the equation. It's not super calculus. It's like addition. It's just this plus that equals that. In order to get to our last point, we have to add these three things together. And those three things are just completely overlooked because we just honestly don't care about getting to that last point.
Well, Jayar, you think you're so clever, but I can answer one of those. Are people volunteering to be exposed? Some. They were at a rally over the weekend. They're going to be in Target in a video we're going to show people a little bit later on. Some people are volunteering. Anyway, okay, so to the director, we're going to jump ahead to the B block after I read some of these comments, because we do have a lot of other things that we have to get to. But let's read a few of these. First out the gate in the Super Chats today was KVL, who said, "Good morning from the embers of Oregon. Missed last week and needed my John Jayar fix. Happy birthday." Thank you. Thank you. Denkar says, "I could see the smoke in the sky from the West Coast this morning. By the way, I live in, is that Massachusetts? Hey, don't lie." Although there's fires in, I think it was Pennsylvania as well. I mean, it's not just the West Coast, although the West Coast has the worst. Herd mentality says he wants herd immunity that would cost something like 6 million deaths. Well, it would cost a lot, but probably not mostly people that he knows or cares about. Okay. David Covert says, "Of the gentlemen that signed the Middle East Treaty a few days ago, have they gone to war against one another at any time? I haven't found anything." So no. So look, I think a balanced view of what happened in terms of that is the main concerns about the possibility of future hostilities in the Mideast are not between the countries that are a party to this. If this brings them closer together, that's a good thing, even if just economically. And if it smooths things over a little bit, maybe brings other countries in, that's a good thing. But let's not pretend that this is what people have been talking about for decades when they talk about the need for peace in the Middle East. It's just not. Okay. Dango Bengal says, "Someone call Miracle Max's wife. We got a liar." That's true. Okay, the original mess says, hey, John, I just wanted to thank you and the entire TDR crew for helping us to stay informed and relatively sane this year. Can I ask for a B-Day shout-out for my son? I think that's Ciaran for his 15th. I apologize if that's mispronounced, but however it's pronounced, happy birthday. And to the original mess, thank you for watching. Ray Riley says, Jayar and Adrian were the best subs all week.
I saw some varying Twitter opinions about it. Someone that specifically said, "Oh God, thank God you're back, John, because those losers in your place were insane." And then they went on to say, "But I loved when Adrian was on. I loved when Brett was on. I was like, this is a conflicting tweet here. I'm not sure how to feel about this."
Totally. I think the issue is that there are people who have preferences, and then there's 10 times that many people who like to troll us.
Well, no, I think he's being real because he pointed out how much he loves watching you on. And good to have you back. It felt a little off, which of course normal show is going to feel off when the guy who you see his face every day isn't there. And then he went on to talk about how much he enjoyed it though. So it was a real moment, and I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Let's see. Lena Peak says, Coney dogs, JR, don't diss on the Midwest. And she gave a crying happy face and a hot dog emoji.
Is it Coney dogs? Because I remember one of them specifically, it was Michelle Bachmann. She was eating like this big corn dog. And every politician does it when they're running. And they have to stop doing it.
Is that? Yeah, because that thing, I don't know what that was. But that was...
It's always like a big corn dog. And I didn't know if it's a Coney dog or not.
It was a corn dog, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was like
covered in batter.
Yeah. It's usually, and it's like a Midwest tradition that's some kind of festival or event, I think.
Totally. Yeah, I don't remember exactly which one. It might be Ohio, but anyway, that was one of the most disturbing photos I've seen in my life, and I watched Hopping. Anyway, Yarmul, thank you for your super chat. I'm not going to show the image, but you know what I'm talking about. Obi-Wan Kenobi, thank you for gifting those subs over on Twitch. John's Venn diagram of Desire gifted one as well. Thank you for that. Bad Rongo said, I would like to treat you two to dinner at Taco Bell. I think that's a reference to Demolition Man. I think. Not Just Another Mother says, what's on your shirt, John? It's pineapples. I mostly wear this shirt at this point to bother people in chat. Although Urban Gypsy says, great shirt. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because honestly, that shirt's fire, bro.
Thank you. Luke over on Twitch says, John drove the whole way to the studio and forgot he was still wearing his pajamas. I have other shirts here. I chose the pajamas. And Brooke Mark says, happy party shirt Wednesday, everyone. Thank you. Okay, over on Twitter at #TDRLive, Gabby says, I don't think herd immunity is possible in a country in which people literally sink their own boats while trying to defy public policy. Yeah, I think that, you know what leads to Trump boats being sunk? Herd mentality, I think. Let's see. And Tom Zawaki tweeted, the only reason John is wearing that shirt is that he's desperately hoping for some form of good luck in 2020. And he attached a GIF of Joey from Friends holding a pineapple and saying, let me make love to you. I don't remember that scene from Friends, but thank you for the tweet. Anyway, with that, why don't we jump to a little bit of reaction to last night, and then we're going to go into a few other stories, a few other topics. So with that, let's jump ahead. Even as Donald Trump's town hall last night was going on, the reactions were rolling in, and it was mostly, sort of centered around him having trouble coming up with the right words, him looking just terrible as he's trying to talk over people. He has no ability to talk about policy and all that. It was a disaster. And many people were wondering, who okayed this? Why would he do this town hall? He is so ill-prepared to answer direct questions without someone like a Jeanine Pirro, being the bumpers on the duck pin bowling that is his brain. And it looked terrible. How do you know it's terrible? Take a look at Laura Ingraham, her immediate reaction, how she tried to characterize this town hall.
But the DNC may as well have put the whole thing on.
You should know that some of these people voted for you last time around. Some voted for Hillary Clinton.
Why did you throw vulnerable people like me under the bus?
Why don't you support a mandate for national mask wearing? And why don't you wear a mask more often?
Why would you downplay a pandemic that is known to disproportionately harm low-income families and minority communities?
And then there was this moment.
Should pre-existing conditions which Obamacare brought to fruition be removed?
No.
Please stop and let me finish my question, sir. Should that be removed?
I hope you are taken seriously. I hope you are. And we are not going to hurt anything having to do with pre-existing conditions. They will not do that because they have socialized.
I have to stop you there. You've been trying to strike down pre-existing conditions.
I have it already, and it's a much better plan for you, and it's a much better plan.
Okay, so you could see in the little chyron, it was an ambush against Donald Trump. So I have some thoughts, Jared, but what do you think about that? Seems a tad defensive.
I'll let you go with the ambush because I want to hear your thoughts on it first. But so this is similarly to letting the guy talk to someone. That's all it is. He's talking, and that's an ambush. Again, I was trying not to go to the ambush because I'll follow up on you. I want to point out a couple of specifics about how Laura Ingraham is trying to pose this, right? As we're watching it, if you listen to it without any bias, at the end of it, you go, man, he's really lying about that pre-existing condition line. Because she's playing what he said, and this is supposed to sound like he's the victim. He's been set up. These vicious Americans are asking him questions. But specifically about that part, she went through several, like 3 questions from previous people that she found disturbing. But made sure to come back to her. This is all production. This is a plan. I say this all the time. When Tucker Carlson talks, when Sean Hannity talks, and all these guys talk, they're reading from a teleprompter. Every syllable that they say is being put in front of them on a teleprompter, and they read it. Whatever part of it they had in writing it, yeah, they have varying levels of it. I get it. But as they come back to Laura Ingraham to make sure, she points out this lady right here next to me, her question goes, and then here's this moment. This is a specifically bad moment. Do you know why? Because this uppity black lady decided to interrupt your president when he was trying to interrupt her in the middle of her question. This is specifically a bad moment in this town hall. This lady decides to interrupt your president, who's more important than her. That's all that was for. And can you believe it? She's going to disrespect your president. This is the basis for their base. This is what their base believes, and this is what their base likes about him from the beginning. His hatred, his racism for certain people. And now look at what this country's become. A black woman decides to interrupt your president. That's all that was saying. Now, you don't have to say it directly, because now when someone like me points out what your message was there, you go, oh, look at them always trying racism. Hey, the racism starts with you pulling off something like that. It's just how it was. What other reason do you have for specifically pointing out that moment, which is the same as another constituent asking a question of this president and interrupting him? The point is she interrupted him. What an uppity black woman this is.
100%. As soon as I saw it, I thought, if that exact same interaction happened and that was a white woman, there's like a 25% chance that it was in that montage. It's not 50. Yeah, how dare she? Because she was doing what everyone needs to do. Don't let Donald Trump just steamroll you, because he doesn't want you to follow up and call him out on his BS, to quote him, all of that. He just wants to keep talking, so don't let him. She shouldn't. He's there to answer their questions. That's what he came for. Let them ask their questions. But so Ingraham must have thought that little montage effectively communicated her point, that this is an ambush. But really, it being an ambush is entirely dependent on how unfair or perhaps biased in their framing the questions are. We've seen questions like that. I don't remember, it was back in 2016, I think, in the primary. Bernie Sanders was asked a question from a Fox News host, I think it was a Fox News host, about socialism and Cuba and all this, and it was just so obviously fake, conflating these two things. What Donald Trump got was questions like, why don't you support a mask mandate? Okay, you may not like that, Laura Ingraham, because you don't think that people should wear masks or socially distance. You've been saying that for months, but the doctors all say that we should be wearing masks. So that seems like a perfectly fair question. Why did he leave people to die? Okay, that's a harsh question, but 200,000 people have died. So hardly surprising that voters would have that question on their minds. Why did you downplay the virus? Okay, that's inconvenient. I could see that, but it was your boy's own words that said that. He said that to Bob Woodward. So how's that an ambush? Did he ambush himself with Bob Woodward? These are not unfair questions. And the pre-existing conditions thing, okay, you may not like it, but Donald Trump and the Republican Party have been trying to remove protections for pre-existing conditions. They didn't support the ACA, which was the first protections for those, and they've been trying to destroy it. They tried it the first year of Trump's administration. They thankfully failed, but they tried, and right now they have a case before the Supreme Court that would destroy the ACA. Now, Trump would say, I will then produce a new protection. And you'll see it in 2 weeks, by the way. He always says that. George Stephanopoulos at some point called him out on that for repeatedly saying, it'll be 2 weeks, it'll be 3 weeks, going back, interview, year after year after year, saying, I'm going to have a healthcare plan. Well, where is it? Is it an ambush to want him to finally make good on a promise that he's been promising for literally years? That is only an ambush if you have literally no standards whatsoever for this politician. He has walked into every single one of those questions and 1,000 more with his callous disregard for the American people during this pandemic. So she can whine that she doesn't like it. I get it. He sucked. I wouldn't like it either if he was my politician, but that doesn't make it an ambush, and that doesn't make that an effective segment.
Anytime the truth, or at least reality, is synonymous with an ambush, and that's your party and that's your president, hey, this is a problem. It's like the truth has been told, or reality is striking him. What an ambush. That means the reality is we allow him to get away with lies. So George Stephanopoulos stepping in and saying, hey, actually what you did say about pre-existing conditions is the opposite of what you're saying right now. That's an ambush to speak a fact about what someone is just lying about. So what you want is for a politician to be able to lie and no one call it out. Keep it real. Just say it. Just say it. What happened to the days of allowing a politician to lie right in front of me, blatantly and easily debunk, and just not do it? What happened to those days? Yeah. That's what you're longing for. This is what makes America great again means. Let's go back to those days.
Yeah. And by the way, at last night's town hall, he said that he would have an immigration plan in 2 to 3 weeks. So someone watching, can you remind me in 2 to 3 weeks? I'm sure we'll be reviewing the detailed proposal at that time. Lots of lies, though. You want one more lie? I think the lie above all other lies, the crowning lie achievement. This morning, Donald Trump tweeted, "Thank you for the great reviews of the ABC News show last night." No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't. Dude, your girl had a breakdown because of how unfair it was to make you look so bad. There were no great reviews, you big dummy liar.
It's the same as saying, I want to thank Bob Woodward for the amazing book. Talk about all the amazing things I've been doing.
Exactly. Yeah, and his lie that he had read it in one day, this like almost 500-page book. By the way, we're not doing it as a story, but there was another update about his intelligence briefings, and it was more detailed. It said, they'd long ago, they jettisoned the full briefings that like Obama would read, detailed information about the state of the world, and they had instead turned to bullet points, which we've known for a long time. But they said that they were growing sort of like concerned about whether even the bullet points would work because they had started to produce cards of 3 bullet points, and they said they could never get him past 2. He read the 500-page book in one night, I think. Anyway. Oh, God.
I didn't know about the bullet points and cards thing, man. That's depressing.
So Imagine if Marissa's one of our producers. Let's say that she goes on to another job someday, and she's like, I would produce these interviews for John, and it was like I had to fit something good in the first bullet point because there was no chance that big idiot was getting the second one. Can you imagine?
Oh, it'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. Don't do that, please, Marissa. Okay.
How much she pays me for that, I'll totally vouch for it. I mean, it's a 6-figure type of payment, but I'll back it up.
Oh, God. Okay. Sister Soul with a super chat saying, "We are not cattle, 100%. Melissa Watkins, thank you for your super chat. Silence Greystone, I saw in Indonesia, they make non-maskers dig the graves for the COVID-19 victims, 100% behind being this into America. Yeah, it seems effective. I'm deeply uncomfortable about that entire thing that they're doing over there. That seems very threatening. I don't know. I don't like it. Yeah, wear masks, but let's not have people dig mass graves. Gina Jones says, "Did you all see Joe Biden pulling out his phone and playing Despacito?" Yeah. And look, Is it awkward? Sure. But there's 2 issues with that. One, the context. The person who'd written it apparently had just let him out onto the stage or something. So you get to do it then. You do. And my second test is, how would I react if Bernie did this? Would I hate it if Bernie did it? No, probably not. If AOC did it, would I hate it? Probably not.
Honestly, don't care. Don't care. Music is played all the time. It's like, if you're going to play music when you walk out, it's like saying, "Oh, do you know that they played John Mellencamp?" Yeah, they played music. Yeah, and it's supposed to fit a certain group of people. Hillary Clinton played, it's like a woman empowerment song. Can't think of the song right now.
Song.
But she played it because it fit what her campaign was trying to push, breaking the glass ceiling, all that stuff. So if you play Despacito because you figure the people like this song, play the damn song. I don't get.
Which, by the way, you're 100% right, and also Fight Song has been ruined because now whenever I hear that I think of massive failure at great cost. But anyway, I will sometimes comment on the music that politicians play when they've been told multiple times not to use it and they insist on using it anyway, or when they fundamentally misunderstand the point of the song, which is very common, like Trump playing Fortunate Son and things like that, or Born in the USA, and having no idea what the actual message of these songs is, because the idea of art just doesn't fit into their belly button lint brains. Anyway. Okay, let's see. Deb Wick says, you are the best source of news out there. Thank you for all you do. I'm not, but thank you. I do appreciate that. Let's see. Brian says, I have a much better plan, but you have to re-elect me to find out what it is. Totally. It's very office. The thing on the left says, from what I read, John, this treaty was done so the UAE could buy weapons from the United States, so they are obligated to help in wars in the future. I haven't read that. I don't find it inconceivable that our foreign policy with the Mideast is based around weapons sales. That seems pretty consistent. I'm only reading this to because Jayar will hate it. Jeffrey Klein says, John looks gorgeous today. Let's play Dune and Imperium board game when it comes out, John.
Does gorgeous and the Doom game have some kind of a connection here?
I don't know. But it seems like a cool game. I would consider playing it. Okay.
Don't show up ugly at all, though. Don't show up to the game ugly.
No, you kicked out of my table. A couple of people talking about Demolition Man and Twitch. Love that movie, by the way. Hope it gets a sequel. Supposedly it's going to. Ellinger88 says, my main question is, why do his followers who believe still that this is a hoax not question why he's pushing for a vaccine? Right there with you. There's so many issues that I don't see how you could believe these things simultaneously.
Doesn't make
find a way.
Ever. No, there's too many illogical points to even address at this point. I didn't think of that one either.
Yeah. In the same way that life finds a way, stupid finds a way. That's what it is. Okay, with that, let's. John, I'd like to get to. Okay. Yesterday on the show, we talked about the ICE facility whistleblower Dawn Wooten, who was talking about both the complete negligence when it comes to COVID, but also the apparent epidemic of needless and non-consensual hysterectomies that have been performed on detainees. That whistleblower has now been on TV last night on Chris Hayes' show. Want to show you just a few of her comments about what she was exposed to in her time at the facility.
We have detained women. I had several detained women on numerous occasions that would come to me and say, Miss Wooten, I had a hysterectomy. Why? I had no answers as to why they had those procedures. And one lady walked up to me here this last time around between October of 19 until July the 2nd. And she said, what is he? Is he the uterus collector? Does he collect uteruses? And I asked her, what does she mean? And she says, everybody that I talked to has had a hysterectomy. And you just don't know what to say. I mean, I don't have a answer for why that they would come to me and they would say, is he the uterus collector?
Yeah, so yesterday on the show, Gary Chambers and we speculated about a few of the reasons they could be doing this. None of them are good. Some more horrifying and theoretically genocidal and eugenics-based than others. But from what we have heard from this whistleblower, it is apparently happening. We will find out more. We now have, let's see. I'm going to jump ahead. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, is demanding a probe. 160 Democrats have signed on to that. I'm sure other Republicans, the pro-lifers, are going to be really concerned about this, and they're going to join. So supposedly an investigation will be done, perhaps we will learn something about this if these procedures are being done, if they're actually being logged, and all of that. The entire thing, Jayar, is just absolutely horrific.
Yo, this is one of those things where, if you say it without any kind of evidence or without anyone coming out and saying it, if you even speculate and go, you know what, it's kind of, I wouldn't put it past them to start pulling out mass hysterectomies of these women because of the things that they've always said about these women and this group of people that they've now have housed and treat like garbage. We talk about even the things that happen in the facility with the lack of COVID preparedness and safety when it comes around them. So if they don't care about their lives in that aspect, they definitely don't care about any potential reproduction that they can pull off. Now, this isn't something that started with Trump, as we know. Now, this policy potentially with ICE may have, but the Republican Party and Republican pundits and conservatives have been talking for years about how white people are getting outpaced by Latinos in this country, and soon we're going to be the minority. They're having babies at a faster rate. We got to start having babies. I think it's, Steve King may have been one of those on that as well, but there was definitely pundits that talk about it and other politicians that want to refill our coffers of white babies because we're getting outdone by Latinos. We're losing is basically the way they put it. Now, throughout history, we know that this country's done things with sterilization of particular women. I want to point out this one part that I read in this piece. There was legislation put in place. The reason behind it was to get rid of certain people and their horrible traits. So really fast, legislation that was motivated was there was crude theories of human hereditary that posited the wholesale inheritance of traits associated with a bunch of feared conditions: criminality, feeble-mindedness, sexual deviance. So these types of traits were attributed to black and brown people in this country, and therefore they sterilized these women systemically the way they just decided to do it. So let's remember back to when this president stepped up on that stage after riding down the escalator. What did he say about Latinos? They're rapists. They're murderers. They're coming over our country to take over and whatever to do to your people and your family. Went through 3 or 4 straight negative stereotypical traits that racists believe about a certain group of people, that now when you've got them all housed in this facility, you're starting to sterilize many of them to make sure that you get rid of those traits. It's just, we're replaying history. So if you believe as a racist, this is why it's dangerous to elect a rabid racist as the president of the United States. They will carry out their beliefs in policy. It's happening right in front of you. But when people came out like us and complained about the way he talks about these people, then we get told, oh, snowflake, oh, he's just speaking the truth. He's trying to protect the country. This has led to these types of policies that they think are just fine and dandy because this matches up to the end game, which is to limit the number of these people with the wrong genes, white supremacist type of language, from having more children that embody those horrible stereotypes. Yeah. It's just all it is to it.
Yeah, and look, obviously we need the investigation. We can speculate. We don't know exactly how many were done, but considering what has been done at these facilities just during the Trump administration, there are very good reasons to be incredibly concerned about this. We know how little care there has been in these sorts of facilities to protect people from the spread of COVID. There's been sexual assaults, there's been abuse, there's been deporting individuals who are about to give testimony. Like, all of these things are context that we also have to bear in mind when hearing what this whistleblower has to say. Obviously, we need an investigation and more information. And in terms of the speculation, like the idea that this, like all of what Jayar just said, like, it is an indisputable fact that our government has conducted things like this in the past, that many other governments have done that. If you believe that there is something fundamentally changed about America 2020 that means we could not do this, that the Trump administration would not do these things in the same way that our government and other governments have, feel free. More power to you. I don't see it. Now, we do still have to wait for the information. I'm not interested in speaking definitively about things that I don't know, but I do know what America is and has been. That's what I know. Thankfully, we do have some good politicians. So I want to jump ahead to these quotes from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She tweeted, "It's astounding that after a massive family separation operation, mass sexual assault of detainees, trapping immigrants in COVID-infected detention centers, and now reports of mass hysterectomies, which the U.S. has done before, abolishing ICE is controversial. Where's the line?" And I saw also that she had quote retweeted Emma Vigeland, who's talking about this, about the fact that that was considered radical a year or two ago, saying it wasn't just the right wing that thought so. The reason I didn't choose a more comfortable term for targeting and detaining groups largely by ethnicity without trial in camps with malnutrition, sexual assault, permanent psychological trauma, and bodily harm is because we shouldn't be comfortable about it. That was, in fact, one of the things that we talked about when she was on this show. She had just come back from one of those camps on the border. This is, you know, like, were we supposed to assume that things have gotten better? I mean, how many kids are still lost and unaccounted for? How many sexual assaults are happening literally as Absolutely. I'm doing this report right now? Is that doctor, what, is he not going to collect uteruses in the future? If we're going to get to that point, it is going to require strong action. And I think that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez should be, you know, part of the leadership in this investigation. Hopefully Nancy Pelosi doesn't move on after a day or two because the cost is so absolutely significant.
Yeah, one last thing on this is also unlimited amount of props need to be given to this particular whistleblower, as people keep talking about whenever a whistleblower comes out, say their name, why don't they identify themselves? Her name is Dawn Wooten. And also, oh, they're just doing this because they're a disgruntled ex-employee and they just want to get some get back. Hey, and they want to make some money off of this. I'm looking for her book that she's promoting as she's talking about this. No, she's doing it for all the right reasons. She's talking about the issues that are happening on her watch and what she's seen is happening in our government. And then is also not doing it and waiting until a certain point to promote a book to do so. And she has her name out there. As dangerous as that is, and how many death threats she's probably now getting over this, because if you ask, oh, why don't they identify themselves? I'm sure she can give you a laundry list of reasons why she probably shouldn't have identified herself, but she did anyway because she's braver than the rest of these guys. Now, and honestly, I'd be okay if she was anonymous because we know the response that she's going to get. We know that's the reason why they want to identify her. We know all that, but she did anyway because she's actually doing these things for the right reasons.
Exactly. And, you know, I don't know if Skip, you can go back to it, but we have a tweet from the Government Accountability Project, which apparently has been working with Dawn Wooten. There was already a fake Twitter account that had to be suspended that got over 8,000 followers pretending to be Dawn Wooten to, I guess, convince people that she was doing this for purely political reasons. I don't know if you can read the text there at the bottom, but it describes her as someone who hates Drumpf, a single mother of 5 who supports Black Lives Matter. So you can see what they're trying to target her around. Because remember, fundamentally, we are dealing with people who don't give a damn about what is true and real. They think, wouldn't it be easier to discount her if it was political? And then they look, they can't find anything. So they just make it up. Jayar and I would literally never, like, imagine if we made up like a fake Stephen Miller TikTok account to pretend that he is what we say that he, like, we'd never do it. Because fundamentally, we care about what's true. But there are a million foot soldiers in their army that doesn't give a damn about what's actually true. They want what's convenient and persuasive so that they can maintain their stranglehold on political power. That's what it is. And so, again, this is just a fake account, but you don't think Dawn Wooten's getting death threats as we speak? 100% she is. And look, we'll find out. Is she right? She could be wrong about some of this stuff. I don't know. I don't know her. I have no dog in this fight, except that I want an investigation and I care about what happens to these individuals, which is a fundamental difference from some of the people who are attacking her right now. They don't give a damn what happens to these women in those facilities. Okay, let's move directly on to the next story. I guess in some weird way, this is funny, I suppose, but also scary. So let's move to this. So we've shown you a number of different videos of anti-maskers going into retail locations to complain about the fact that they have to wear one. But take a look at this. This is a video from Target, a group of what looks like young white anti-mask activists stampeding through a Target and yelling at people to take off their masks.
Take your mask off! Yeah, take it off! Idiot. We're not doing it! Take off your mask! Take it off! Take it off! Take it off! We're not stopping it! Yeah, we got someone! Take it off! Take it off! Let me see your example!
Yeah. So that happened in, I believe it was Florida, shockingly. Florida, which was incredibly hard hit by the virus. I had a family member die from COVID in a Florida hospital, and that's what some Floridians think about this pandemic, that it's some kind of joke. You just run around in Target and have fun and possibly infect people with their disease. And and also, by the way, in the same way that you're ripping your mask off, you're also ripping a mask off on the, well, I just don't want to be obligated to do it, because they weren't just shouting, I won't wear one. They were yelling at people to take off their masks. People who have already shown that they're perfectly willing to do it. They don't want anyone to wear one, not just them.
Yeah, I mean, you walk into a business establishment which can set forth any rules they want for how people come in. I mean, as long as it's not discriminatory about who they are and where they came from and, you know, their makeup, their human makeup, you can tell someone there's rules about you coming in the store. Walking with no shoes on, walking with no shirt on. We don't want your diseased feet walking around on our floors where we then have to clean up behind you and potentially spread your diseased foot virus all over the place. So there's rules that have always been in place by stores, and it's their prerogative to do so. And if you don't want to go in because you just can't stand to put on socks and shoes on your nasty feet, then fine, don't come in. Shop somewhere else. Shop at the Target alternative that allows you to walk in with no shoes on. That's the way it works. Hey, so if you're mad at Target for making you wear a mask, don't go to Target. Now, what I want to hear is a questioning of conservatives and specifically elected officials about what they think about their people going through a Target and yelling at other patrons about their decisions about wearing masks. Because I remember when perceived to be protesters were walking around and yelling at people outside of cafes to stop eating there, join the protest. What are you doing? And what did a bunch of Democrats and libs say? Oh, I'm sorry. Those guys shouldn't have done that. My fault. Hey, I want to apologize for them. Hey, they don't represent all of us. Hey, certain people out here yelling at people on the street. That's not the way to convince people to come to our side. I'm waiting for the Republicans and conservatives to then start denouncing and rejecting these folks that walked into Target, screaming in everyone's face, telling them what to do, because that's the same thing. When is Ted Cruz going to come out and say, you know what, I like to denounce and reject these radical conservatives that walk through Target yelling at people about what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And by the way, it doesn't represent us. That doesn't represent us. That's no way to get people on our side. When is that conversation going to be had? No, instead, we're always complaining and we're always denouncing and rejecting people. We do it here. We do it here specifically at TYT. We always worry about what someone else on the street said to someone, and that's no way to approach and get people on your side. No, I'm over that. Yeah, it's wrong that they did it, and that's where we're going to stop. That has nothing to do with me, because I wasn't out on the streets telling people to get up from their cafes and join the movement. No, that wasn't me, so I have nothing to say about it. Same way conservatives have nothing to say about this.
Yeah. Although, who knows? I mean, if one of those people's identified, they'll probably be on Tucker Carlson, and he'll talk about how they're American hero. I can only imagine, like, if you're one of the workers, like, you have to work at Target, like, you're already being exposed. We already know how many retail workers have died, and that band of, hashtag herd mentality coming in, like, scale, like, let's say I were to tell you just one fact about an individual, and you have to tell me how that influences you on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious you think they are otherwise about the virus. They run through Target yelling at people to take off their masks. How serious do you think they take the virus? What are the chances that they have COVID right then? I think it's safe to say higher than normal. And they're running up on people. And those people hypothetically could get sick. I'm sure you've all seen the reports of there was an in-person wedding in Maine, and contact tracing has now identified 7 individuals who died as a result of that. Not people, by the way, who were at the wedding, but people who were infected by people who were at the wedding are dead now. 7 individuals because they decided to have this wedding. Every event in a pandemic can have consequences. Maybe you'll be lucky, it's Russian roulette or whatever. Maybe you won't kill anyone, but maybe someone will die as a result of what you just saw there. And bear in mind, many people are still dying. Let's do what we do virtually every day. Here's the most recent reporting from the COVID Tracking Project. Yesterday, 1,031 deaths were reported. More than 1,000 Americans died. Again, I can't tell you how many times I've now said more than 1,000 Americans have died in the most recent reporting. And I'm going to say it over and over and over again. Maybe someday someone will go through and mash it up, because 1,000+ people are still dying every day. It's been more than half a year and we're still losing that many people. Why? I don't think it's totally unfair to say because of videos like we just showed you. And it seems to only be getting worse. You probably saw the video of the cops who went to a college party, like that, a bunch of people. You're only supposed to have like 10 people in a building. They had like 50. The guy who was throwing the party was positive with COVID. He told the guy, yeah, no, I was tested. I was positive. And they were like, well, aren't you supposed to be quarantining? He's like, yeah, I am with them. The 50 people that are also unmasked and possibly have COVID. Like, and this is just all over the place. Last thing. And again, we alluded to this yesterday on the show. Right now, you have a couple different sorts of protests going on, as we've talked about many times. You have people who are being gassed and run over by police cruisers and being shot in the head with non-lethal munitions to push for people's civil rights. And then you have people who are rampaging through Target telling other people to take off their masks. The wide range of experiences in America, different sorts of concern. That's what we've got. Okay. We're over. I don't think that we can do the additional stuff. It'll have to be held for tomorrow. But Jayar, thank you as always. Great to have you on, and thank you once again for hosting the show last Wednesday. Really do appreciate that.
Oh no, good times. I hope you got well needed rest, brother. You deserve it.
I did. We had fun. We had fun.
Good. Good.
Take care of yourself.
Will do. You too, man. See you guys.
Thank you. For everyone at home, let's see what's been going on a little bit. Obi-Wan Kenobi gifting more Tier 1 subs. Thank you, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Really do appreciate that over on Twitch. Obi-Wan Kenobi left a comment saying, a dragon in a pineapple shirt eating pie and drinking 2 strong coffee. Damn, I wish I could draw. That's a shirt we need to see. Red Shen Dragon on Twitch says, OMG, yes, idiocracy is the hell we are living in. Yeah. At least they had, some cool TV shows. We've got The Floor is Lava. I guess that's something. Bart says, John, I think you need to reevaluate your review of Idiocracy. It's a masterpiece. I'm not saying it's not good satire. I'm just saying it's really dumb. It's so dumb that it hurts me. Okay. Says Soul, thank you for your super chat. Let's see. Misty Bauer says to sign a waiver saying they agree to be prosecuted for murder if someone dies because of them infecting them while we were at it, charge the president too. Yeah, I mean you can't do that, but you can require that people wear masks. Or you can try at least. Misty Bauer says, for those who want the right to not wear a mask. Oh, I see. This was leading into that one. Thank you, Misty, for both of your super chats. I really do appreciate that. Adriana says, amazing reviews, unheard of. Yeah, his response is getting those. Laura says, the common cold has never gone away by doing nothing. Herd immunity only exists with immunizations. Otherwise, we would not need any of the vaccines. Yeah. God. Chakuseki says, when does Trump double down more? When defending a rancid opinion or when ordering at KFC? I do remember the double down. How many people in the chat had a double down? I went and got one. Mostly regretted it. Nora, thank you for your lemon emoji. Laura, thank you for your workout emoji. I do appreciate that. Okay. Let's see what's going on Twitter. Okay, Tom Zawacki says, Trump is like the drunk driver who drives himself home. On the road, he hits 3 dogs, 2 cats, runs over a homeless man, forces 2 cars off the road, and kills 1 person. But he gets home safely, so his actions are inconsequential with respect to his final results. Yeah, that's what that it'll disappear eventually is all about. At some point, it'll disappear. Now, will it have killed many people along the way? Sure, but I won't have to necessarily deal with it anymore. It is that sociopathic point of view. It only matters insofar as it affects my day-to-day life. You saw that on display with the herd mentality people in Target, by the way. Cisco says Mike Judge is an American treasure. Well, you just became Bart's favorite person, basically. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching the show. We're going to be conducting an interview a little bit later on. That'll be going up on the channel, so you definitely want to check the YouTube channel for those non-live videos. I'm going to be joining Anna Kasparian on the main show later on today, so you can watch me there as well. Nando is going to be joining me for the show tomorrow. Brett will be here for Garbage People on Friday, so a lot more to look forward to. Until then, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. I'll see you later.